Okay, so ABNcast has left its London base this week for 2 days in Dublin at MRO Management's Predictive Aircraft Maintenance Conference. It's our annual event. We get together for 2 days every year. We brought it to Dublin last year, and we're here again for a second year. We've got through the first morning at this stage as we're speaking, and we've had an absolutely packed room. Some amazingly good, I think, we'll talk about this in a minute, but some very good sessions. Huge, amazing insights from some airlines about what they're doing around predictive, not least from easyJet. Joining me is Craig Lynch, who is the predictive maintenance specialist at easyJet. So thanks for joining us on ABNcast, Craig.
Thank you.
And first, before we start, congratulations on the 30th anniversary of easyJet's first flight, which was yesterday, wasn't it, I think?
That's correct. Yeah. It was a nice big event that sadly we had to miss because we were flying out here.
More important things to do. I mean,
this is true.
Yes.
This is true. I'm sure they had a great time without us.
For 30 years, let's not downplay it. It's not too over-egging it to say that easyJet was the pioneer of the low-cost model, certainly in UK, but also in Europe. And here you are today, 30 years later, still going strong, and the low-cost model still also very strong in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, it's not been without challenge. You know, the COVID, hit us big time. Downsizing our fleet. But we've recovered really well. When you see the impact that easyJet Holidays has had, it's helped prop up a really competitive market out there. No, we're doing great.
That's it. You mentioned the holidays aspect of easyJet is something that everyone's looking at as a way of making more money in aviation, which I think everyone wants to do.
Yeah, keeping passengers happy, given what they want, and they want a packaged holiday. They want that reassurance.
What they also want is for their aircraft to take off on time.
This is true.
Safely, but on
Absolutely.
time. And which is what this 2 days is all about. Now, when we started this morning, I asked people to stick their hands up about how many times they'd been to PAM, and you were in the Ultra. I think you're probably fifth.
Five. I've got five. So I didn't do the Singapore.
You are a regular, and actually in the panel that we discussed PAM on later, you explained that the reason for that is that PAM and Predictive has been part of easyJet's DNA for a long time, maybe a lot longer than some of the other airlines we've heard from today.
Yeah.
So in some ways you're ahead of the game. So people come to listen to the kind of experiences that easyJet have had. What is it that prompted easyJet in the early days to sort of say, right, actually PAM is something we want to invest in. Predictive is useful to us and can drive results.
Yeah, well, when we started this journey early on, there weren't many other people in that sort of domain. So PAM gave us the opportunity to connect with other interested parties, whether they'd started their journey in predictive or not. We were able to share ideas, share concepts, understand where we are within the sort of aviation ecosphere of predictive. And then that helped us decide, do we want to push on with this? Do we want to be first, or do we want to collaborate and join forces with someone? And we kind of did a hybrid approach. We wanted to be, one of the early adopters of predictive maintenance. But we went down a collaborative approach with Airbus, mainly because single fleet and also the sort of access to data and sort of modification and upgrade path that we thought might be necessary really required Airbus. So
So being a pioneer and early mover, do you sense you've had that early mover advantage in doing this? Or
absolutely. I think some of it is the lag in measurable data. We can have a concept of KPIs and what our value stream is going to be from acting predictively. But when you actually try and measure it straight off, you don't get that information. There is a significant lag in the actionable outcome of acting predictively from a financial or operational advantage. Especially considering the EU 261 compensation, it's not a static point. There's a long claim back period. So you can actually budget for 50% of your passengers claiming it back within the first few months, and then they've got several years to claim it back. So the actual cost of a disruption can change significantly within the 5-6 years.
It's hard to predict, ironically.
It's hard to predict, but thankfully after 5 or 6 years, you've got historic data to base your measurements on.
The panel we did earlier, we were joined by United and Delta and SAS, and the title referenced a term recreational maintenance, which is the kind of the feeling that people feel the industry has towards predictive. where it's not serious. Is it not? What is it? We're not being serious or not being.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Hard to prove, I guess, is the thing.
Yeah.
So, how have you got over that as EasyJet, and what have you done in the business to prove to the bosses that this isn't just about recreational maintenance, it's something really fundamentally?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it in the panel that it helps when it's their idea to start with.
Yeah.
And the second fundamental part of that is the trust that's given to people like myself and the predictive engineer to either act or to not act.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful to not act, to see what the outcome would be. Otherwise, you don't get to measure what would actually happen. Without the failure, you don't measure what actually happened, and you don't understand the impact. And from having like a blind fleet where you partition some of your predictions and then look at them after event, you can actually say, well, we could have intercepted that, but what actually happened? How much did it cost us? Not from just a financial perspective, but from a reputational damage, passenger comfort and satisfaction. We spend a lot of time focusing on our CSAT scores within the industry, and predictive maintenance is kind of like the ninja operating in the background. It keeps those scores as high as possible without them even knowing it, and I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah. We've also heard from another different airlines this morning. What was the thought? What were the highlights that you took out of this morning's session?
I think Stephen Rayner from British Airways. It was a very powerful and interesting presentation. It just shows you that regardless of where you are on your predictive journey, that there's value in it.
Yeah.
It's not just about learning lessons from anyone such as us, SAS, Delta. You got to create your own path, make your own way. But if you sit in a room and you listen to what some people have been doing, you can take bits, you can make it modular, you can choose your own sort of approach based on your own operations. What do you actually want to achieve? And then you can make it happen. And it's also a lot easier to prove or to try and gain funding or interest from your senior stakeholders by using other companies as a benchmark.
Yeah. Well, what I certainly took from Stephen's presentation, and I think also to a degree earlier in the day from Ryanair, talking about what they're doing internally and the people they need internally and the different kind of people they're bringing into the business. You saw Stephen showcased in a video that we weren't allowed to show because it's still not been shown internally to the B18 yet, but some of his team, and just visually you look at that team, you think this is a different generation of aircraft. I guess you call them engineers still, but they're more like technicians or data scientists. So what we're seeing is, because of predictive, but also technology in general, a huge change in the kind of skills and people that airlines are needing in-house. And I'm sure you're seeing that in EasyJet.
Yeah, completely. We've changed our approach. Historic maintenance just involved maintenance engineers, licensed engineers, mechanics. But to do predictive maintenance, you need a hybrid of data scientists, data engineers, people that conceptualize ideas. They can interpret a systems engineer and the requirements in order to understand and interpret a failure, and importantly failure modes as well, and then translate that using data. It's incredibly powerful. The sort of people that are required, older relics like me, they don't tend to exist. Maybe in 10, 15 years' time, you may see something a bit different. Some of these data scientists will have a deeper understanding of aircraft systems, and they can operate more independently. Darren Mason from Boeing, his presentation was really good, which showed you the sort of the Venn diagram of who should ideally be involved in a predictive maintenance setup. The blend of OEMs, maintenance staff, data scientists, with a side plate of components.
It feels like a real one of those test case studies for AI in the real world. There's a lot of people who doubt AI, what AI will bring, and there's cynics out there. But when you see it applied in this area, you can absolutely see, with people and with the domain expertise and AI layered in, there's huge gains to be had.
Yeah, I know. We're still early. So generative AI has a lot of hallucinations, as we all know. Training data needs to be incredibly robust in order to get some good outcomes. But when we're talking machine learning, you can use historical data, and we're getting a lot of power and use from that. Modeling historic component replacements, predictively and non-predictively, packaging it together, so then we can forecast, what are we going to need between now and 2035? How many components? How many of these valves are we going to need? And it is a really interesting sort of collaboration between the predictive maintenance side of things and our procurement team.
It goes all the way to beyond the OEM to the component manufacturers. Bake predictive in there.
Absolutely,
the whole system works together.
Absolutely. Especially if you're tracking ultra accurate failure mode information. Now, the OEMs have that information already, but how much they actually pay attention, I'm not entirely sure. We need to have some deeper conversations with them. I mean, at easyJet, we track every single component and the multitude of failure modes and failure conditions that it experiences. So that at a click of a button, we can say 75% of our pressure regulating valves have this fault, that fault, and that fault. And then some others may only have 2 or 3 others.
Yeah.
At the last count, I think there are 17 different failure modes that a pressure regulating valve can have.
Right.
And so the minuscule differences in what it's experiencing could actually be pumped into a machine learning algorithm of the future, where you can actually get highly targeted troubleshooting based on the failure mode of the component, rather than just component feels a bit sick, remove. You're like, okay, what do we need to feed forward to the OEM so that they can, part of their repair cycle could be tailored, and it could also, have an adjustment on the cost.
Yeah. So there's still huge amounts to develop in this area. We're nearly at the end of this, but it's got noisy here because the delegates coming out for lunch behind us. There's been a lot of people here today. You've been to all PAMs now for the past 4 or 5, and you've seen it grow. What does the growth of this event suggest to you in terms of moving from this recreational maintenance mindset?
It's reassuring that I know that if I climb onto any other aircraft pretty much throughout the world now, there are people that are looking at this. They have my interests as a passenger at heart. They have safety of aerospace at the very core of why they're here. Yeah. And it's pretty reassuring. We don't talk about cost, we talk about the network, but passengers is what gets us here. Yeah. And I think it's incredibly powerful that that more people are getting involved, seeing where they are. And I think in 10 years' time, it's going to be even bigger than we are today. Yeah. The PAM events have just been magnificent from day one all the way up to here. Yeah. How you can, gather these sorts of experts. I come here to learn. I may be seen as like an old sweat in this, but I come here to listen and learn.
We consider you one of our experts, but we always feel the fact that you're not coming here with all the answers. And that's to everyone's credit, they're not coming here saying, just listen to me, I've got all the answers.
Absolutely.
I've got some of the answers, but otherwise so have you, so I want to hear from you.
Yeah, Aidan Kearney, our head of maintenance ops, summed it up well. It's evolving. Yeah. It's constantly changing. Predictive maintenance is never static. So you've got to pay attention, see where the trends are, see what you can do, and move with the times. Yeah. Try and get ahead of the times. Yeah.
But Craig, thanks very much. I'll let you get off to lunch. Thanks for coming again and being one of our speakers.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Lynch.
Treat. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you. So welcome to this next interview for our ABN cast, recorded live at the Predictive Aircraft Maintenance Conference here in Dublin. That's the conference run every year by Aviation Business News and MRO Management. Joining me as one of our speakers from the first day, we have Aude Fagour. She's the Predictive Maintenance Engineer from Air France KLM Engineering and Maintenance Division. Aude, thanks for joining us on ABN Cast. It's good to see you here. Yes, so I said you were on stage yesterday. You were talking about innovation in predictive maintenance around Air France KLM's Prognos program, which is a long-established program, but obviously always innovating and always developing. Just give us an idea of the kind of things you were telling the audience yesterday as to what you're focusing on in Prognos.
Yes, so yesterday I presented a specific use case because I wanted to be very concrete for the presentation, because some of presentation are very commercial and very large in
theoretical.
yes, very theoretical. So I wanted to be concrete, and I presented a case that we just put in the platform last year about the hydraulic system of the A350 that is now working really well in our platform, so that's why I choose to speak about that aspect.
Yeah, we are seeing more of that, actually. People coming to not just this conference, but the one we ran in Singapore with real use cases, real data,
yes.
real programs where you can come and say, this is actually happening. A, it's happening, and B, it's working, and here's why.
Yes.
I think that's going to move the dial in Predictive, isn't it? It makes people sit up and take notice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I choose to talk about what type of data we use also, because it's important. It's an important aspect that all actors don't have, actually. There were a lot of discussions about how to have access to this data. And as an airline and an MRO, we have the capacity to have continuous data of all our flights and to work on it. It's very valuable aspects on our position as an MRO and an airline.
Yes. Obviously, what people are focused on here, particularly the airlines, is, well, what are the outcomes? What are the impacts of this, applying this technology and this mindset to operations? So what were you able to say to the audience yesterday about that particular case study?
About the impact?
The actual impact, the real impact on operations, yes.
Yeah. I talked about the cooperation between all the actors involved in an airline and an MRO. So as we have access to continuous data, we are able to build strong algorithms, and the strong algorithms are directly sent to the end users that are working in the maintenance control center. And as we have directly access to the shop and to the maintenance control center, we can have easy discussion with them. And this is very important, the collaboration between all actors. So this position as, again, airline and MRO and repair shop help us build stronger algorithm and being very strong in our field.
Sure. Data's at the heart of this. We've just had a presentation about maybe there's a lack of data sometimes, or certainly a lack of quality data. You've got to make sure the data in it's good going in. It tends to be good coming out when you've done the analytics.
Yeah.
Has the industry got an issue around just both quantity and quality of data that it uses?
Yeah, for example, the pilot union are really strong in every airline, and just having access to the data, even in the airline, it's complicated.
Yeah.
So that's why, as being part of an airline is really an advantage for us to have access to this data.
Yeah.
And also in the team, we want to have the capacity of transform this data and have access to it. So we are fond for customize the source, the DAR, every type of data that we use, and we make sure we understand every type of data we can use, snapshot, continuous, etc.
Okay. This is your first Predictive conference, is it?
Yes.
You're a newbie. Okay. I know the company's been here a number of times, but you're the first one for you. So what's been your feeling about it? It's very clear you're among a sector where, there's not many young people here.
Yes.
Let's face it. There's not that many women here, and so on. So you represent sort of the future in terms of who you are in working in this sector, trying to modernize aviation. So what's the sense you got out of this event, this couple of days, in terms of the way it's prepared to embrace innovation and embrace the future?
Yes. I think the world of predictive maintenance is a bit changing thanks to all the data science involved in this predictive maintenance, and a lot of young female engineers also are more and more coming in this field.
Yeah.
So I think it's changing a bit, and I'm proud to be part of this new
generation. Yeah. And obviously Air France and themselves, Air France KLM, are very keen to put people like you on stages like here to showcase what is going on in their own company. That I know there's a lot of young next generation engineers and data scientists in your business.
Yes. In our team, we are around 10 people, and more of them are just like me, young engineer.
Yeah.
So I think that's going in the
positive sign.
Yeah.
How did you get into this? What's your background? Were you studying the right subjects at school, or did you always want to enter aviation?
Yes, I studied aeronautical systems in school, avionic more specifically. So I made the National Aviation School in France, and then I specialized in data science, and today I'm a data analyst in the aeronautical field, and I really like it.
Is it something in France that a lot of young people are aspiring to do?
Yes. More all the engineering field are very it's
popular.
Yeah, it's popular. Yes.
Yeah, it's something that, so in the division that you work in, it's very much about technology and data and innovation. Does that require a certain mindset that comes from the younger generation, or is it something that everybody can adopt? They just need to understand it and understand how it makes an impact into their daily lives.
I think it requires a certain mind, certain attitude. But you need to work a lot, of course, and to be interesting in your subject, in your field. Of course, the passion is the first quality that you.
That's where it starts. Yes. Yeah. Without that, and it is hard work. It's been great having you here. It's been great for Air France KLM to send you to speak to the audience today, particularly not also in your first language as well. So
no.
So that's tough in itself. Never mind addressing such a complicated subject. So no, thank you very much,
and
we wish you the best of luck in your career. I'm sure you'll come back many a time to address us in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Okay, so joining us on our next guest on these special ABN Cast editions being filmed at Predictive Aircraft Maintenance Conference in Dublin is Conor Byrne, and Conor is the technical director at Eirtrade Aviation. Eirtrade Aviation is our platinum headline sponsor, has been for PAM for the last 3 or so years, and will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. So we're great to continue our partnership with Eirtrade. It's been a very fruitful one. Of course, we're in your home city, and the sun's out, which is fantastic.
Good news all around.
So you're out in force, but you were the guy this week put on stage to talk about what you do on behalf of Eirtrade.
Yeah.
You were on a panel that was specifically looking at USM, used serviceable material, which is a big and growing I guess talking point in the industry, because it's always been around, but due to some of the supply chain constraints, it's becoming more important for airlines and your customers to get hold of this stuff to keep these aircraft flying. So just tell us about a few of the trends you're seeing in this area.
Yeah, and look, thanks for having me on the podcast, first of all. And, to touch on your points, I think before I came in today, I did chat to a few guys around the office, and there is a common theme, reflecting whether it's guys looking at engines and airframes or on the piece parts level, the components. It's the same thing. It's lack of supply and huge demand. I like to say it's like the Dublin house crisis here at the moment. So you have 5 people standing outside looking to buy the house.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same thing in the parts market.
In any economy, that means pricing goes up.
Exactly. And then the issue we have, say, on the component side is we send our parts in. Our customers like to have OEM tags, or that's preference as well from our sales team. Yeah. But we're really, frustrated at the minute with turnaround times and obviously costs for repairs on components.
Sure. So just touch on those turnaround times. That's when you need an OEM Tier 1 tag.
Yeah.
So you're struggling to get these approved quickly enough for the customer.
Yeah, and I think, look, the feedback is that it's actually due to the piece parts within for the component that are there's no supply, and you can't just go out and purchase these parts.
Yeah.
So that's becoming a big issue for the industry, and as a result of that, then we're seeing it's not across the board, but there's a slight leniency, I would say, on the acceptance then of PMA parts or Part 21 parts, where maybe not on engine LLPs, but on LRUs or on airframe components, it's becoming more attractive, or via a Tier 2 shop, get a tag quicker, get your part back out to our customer, and as a result sell it then and move on.
But of course, what we heard on your panel, you're on with a lessor, that has implications moving forward for that particular asset, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So it makes things very complicated. When you come the way you specialise at end of life, it changes the calculations to that point as well. So
and like the funny thing is, I mean, all the new aircraft coming off the line now have PMA parts installed. They're just OEM PMAs.
Right.
So to issue a non-PMA statement against the new aircraft is essentially untrue.
Yeah.
Non-OEM PMAs is a different story. But I think overall, as you say, the likes of an engine, no one really wants PMAs on their engine, especially as a lessor. And as a result, for us, it does impact on value when we're pricing up the engine. Are we going to price in PMA parts when we're looking at buying an engine? Probably not.
Yeah. Is this a cyclical thing? Are we going to sort of work through this? We heard on your panel that the manufacturers are getting back up to some sort of speed in terms of deliveries of new aircraft. Does that eventually solve this issue for the medium to long term?
It's hard to say right now, because I listen to, say, Angus Kelly from AirCap, and I use him as a data point because he has any amount of information at his hands.
Yeah.
And right now they're saying this year they're selling 50% of their assets to airlines.
Okay.
Older assets that essentially would usually come to the likes of an Eirtrade Aviation for teardown, or maybe in a second tier airline to continue the life of the aircraft.
Yeah.
Where now it's hugely competitive within the airlines themselves for the metal. Given the engine issues and supply chain constraints, I don't see it changing anytime soon. But look, only time will tell, and over the next 5 years, I think it's going to relatively stay the same, high level. And then
on the weird thing, especially if you look at it, if you're not an airline person from the outside, you're seeing those assets being flown longer and extended life.
Yeah.
At the same time, you guys, and I think you said you're tearing down 6-year-old aircraft because of the financials around that particular asset. So. That seems odd. That seems odd, doesn't it? But it's just it is the reality of this industry. Yeah,
it is, and it's the reality at the moment because of the issues with the new technology and the reliability of those engines for airlines.
Yeah.
Like I was scrolling through LinkedIn there recently, and I seen a comment, now whether it was true or not I don't know, from a CEO that he'd rather pay for the extra fuel burn on an older tech aircraft than have a Neo or a Max aircraft and run into these reliability issues.
Right.
So the cost saving, although it's there on paper, is it actually there in reality?
Yeah.
It's probably more of a headache than anything else.
Yeah. So what just gives an idea, a bit of a flavour of how all this situation that what we're seeing in the sector impacts you on your day-to-day, the day-to-day job. We're not here talking on stage. You're out there trying to buy and negotiate pricing for assets to bring them into the air trade business,
exactly.
Then to sell on or recycle and reuse. What strain and stresses does it put on you as a key mover in that market? What do you
I think at the moment pricing is and timing is everything, and also relationships. So like a few deals that we've done recently have been purely based on relationship, you know, in such a competitive market.
Yeah.
I also think that, you know, for Airtrade as a business, we've started looking at more wide body stuff as a result of the, you know, pricing and competitiveness within the narrow body sector. So, you know, your 320s, your 73s, you know, it's getting crazy out there with pricing that, you know, maybe an airline can justify that pricing because they're going to, you know, utilise the asset. But from a numbers game for us and, you know, piece part level, the numbers don't make sense at the moment. So, you know, in some instances then we started looking at more wide body stuff, your PW4s, your CF6s, that sort of thing, Trent 700s, and moving towards that market. We also really like now 777-300 ERs, really good market at the moment for the parts side of the business.
So that's kind of, you're looking at the trends, aren't you? You're seeing bubbles in the market or hotspots in the market, and then try and move into that area. And I know you've already done A380s, haven't you? Or is it one A380?
We've done one, I believe, so far before my time at the company. But we brought it into knock and tore it down there during COVID.
Right. Okay. So you're not a predictive aircraft maintenance specialist, although there's obviously linkages with what Predictive is all about and what you do. What is that? Why, if the industry adopts Predictive as in the ways that we've been hearing over the last 2 days, how will that change what Airtrade does? Why does Airtrade get interested when people are doing Predictive?
I think it will come around to the guys, you know, talking to the airlines, seeing their struggles based on the data that they have, and then for us as a company, maybe helping that airline focus on, you know, pooling that material for them via exchange programs or something like that, so that, you know, if they have their top 20 parts that fail, that we have those top 20 parts on the shelf for them to support them in the future. You know, exchanges are very attractive for airlines at the moment, I would say, because of the pricing, especially on engine LRUs, through the roof. And as I said, timing is everything. You look at the 5B fan blades, for example, you know, what they were maybe 2-3 years ago, they have actually come down in value, which is unusual compared to other parts on the other LRUs on the, say, the 5B and the 7B, which is doubled in price. Right. You know, so timing is everything with these parts as well. But you know, ultimately it depends on if an airline has an AOG on the ground, they want to know that they have access to the parts.
So are you optimistic about the future? I guess when you come to an event like this, speak to other people in the industry, people like to be optimistic, they like being together, they talk about what they can do in the future. Do you come away from this feeling optimistic that some of the challenges we're facing are going to be addressed?
Yeah, and it does revert back to time. I would be optimistic, you know, overall, and you know, I do still think, you know, I'm a realist as well. So this will take time. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. I think the technology is blowing up in terms of AI and how, you know, listening to some of the speakers here today on how they're adopting technology to benefit their own uses within the organisation and for the aircraft and predictive aircraft maintenance. And I think going forward, it will only improve on each airline's position for maintenance. But again, timing is everything. So, you know, give it another couple of years, I think it'll be a very different conversation we're having, and looking back then saying this is where we're after coming from. You know,
we've heard from a lot of airlines, and they're all doing something now, aren't they? Actually, they're not just talking about doing it; they're actually doing it. Every time that happens, then they create more work that didn't exist before. So actually, it's okay doing the predictive, analysing the data. But it's then, do you follow that up with some actions?
Do you follow through?
Otherwise, what's the point?
You know, it's very interesting to see that actually one of the biggest roadblocks for the airlines is actually the staff. You know, implementing new procedures is quite difficult in a legacy airline. You know, so that in itself is a struggle. And then, you know, you do have people that are, you know, maybe fearful of what the technology will do in terms of, does it replace my job? You know, so there's always that aspect of it as well to consider. But overall, I think it's still very beneficial and will be an improvement for the companies going forward.
Look,
Conor, that's it. Our time is done on this particular edition of ABN Cast. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
And
thanks
again,
very much for having me.
Thanks very much for supporting us this week. And I think next year we've got Dublin again. We'll have Dubai and Singapore. So busy year next year.
I'll have to ask Ken now for tickets to Dubai and Singapore now.
Definitely get on those ones, yeah.
Book the tickets now.
Yeah.
Thanks
Cheers.
very much.
All right, then. Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.